Now it doesn't have to be kept in while I adjust myself here. All right.
Hmm.
All right, you guys ready?
Yep.
Let's do it, buddy.
Cool. Three, two, one. So, welcome everybody. This is your House of Pod in video format. So, I'm your host Raja Jagadisan with your normal hosts on the line, Kaveh Joe
Hey, everyone.
and Joe Jafrida.
Hello.
And I just used both of your last names, so now everybody's outed. I love it.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Now you're gonna
Everyone's
reevaluate if you
driving
want to
the
keep
waiver.
this version.
There's not that many Kaves out there. I was a sitting duck anyways.
Yeah, that's true. San Francisco Cave GI doc. You could probably Google that and get it.
Yeah.
So welcome, guys. I think so. Today we're going to keep it short and sweet. We're just going to try this out. It's really more of a test run for our new video format of the House of Pod. But why don't we start with Joe? I think Joe had a question for us today.
Got a question about marijuana use. I've heard that a lot of people saying, "Hey, nobody's ever died from using marijuana," and I think that's probably true for the most part. But what about somebody who is allergic to it? I would think that could easily cause a fatality potentially, or something go
Hmm.
wrong. But I've never heard anyone talk about that. Do you guys have any insight?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. I don't know if I've ever heard of an actual fatality just from the drug itself. I think we could talk about like motor vehicle accidents being involved with marijuana use. Um, there's actually like this study, it just came out because, Canada actually just legalized marijuana. There was a
Yeah.
study that just came out showing that once you smoke pot, it impairs your driving for up to 5 hours after you
Mhm.
do it. So there is some evidence that like complicated tasks while you're driving can be affected. Now, most people who smoke pot, they'll tell you that they actually drive better when they're high. I've heard many people say that because they pay more attention, is what they say. And what's funny is that the study actually showed that for the one benefit or the one thing that seemed okay about smoking pot when you drove is that the first hour after you did it, you were actually more vigilant. So that is true. People, when they smoke pot and they're driving, they're a little bit more paranoid, but it only lasts for that first hour. So it's not like a thing that you can stick with. And certainly up to 5 hours, they seem to be affected. Now, as for the allergy, totally, I'm sure someone has an allergy to it. It's same way someone has an allergy to like certain pollens and plants and that sort of thing. But I don't know, Roger, have you ever heard of a case of someone dying or having mortality just from pot itself?
Well, first of all, that's hilarious. That study that you just said that people are more vigilant because they're like token of like, I got to pay
Yeah.
attention for a second here, but I can't focus for 5 hours, and I just give up after a while. Um, well, so let me step back. So I think what Joe's getting at here is, so there's the idea of physical addiction versus psychological addiction in most of our drugs, and it's so medically. It's complicated because a lot of substances do both. So, for example, alcohol is both psychologically addicting, which means it gives you some feeling that you crave, that you want to do it again and again, and then it becomes something of a psychological addiction. But simultaneously, alcohol also directly impacts your brain and your brain neurochemistry, and in a way that is, it actually causes very real physiological impacts that you're probably not even aware of, but your body is. So when you take long-term drinkers, for example, and if you were to just theoretically try to stop a dude that takes two, 6 packs a day for the last 10 years and say, you're stopping cold turkey. Well, the brain has actually gotten used to getting alcohol for so long that certain, the neurochemistry has been affected. So it's been used to getting this kind of depressant, the CNS depressant. And so what happens when you quit that fast is your brain kind of goes into overdrive. I mean, it goes crazy. And so you get things like seizures, you get delirium tremens. People literally can't, in the old days, the old mortality rates for people who would do a sudden cessation of alcohol was on the rate of like 20%, 15 to 20% for people who were hospitalized in the old days. And it's absolutely a real thing. It is an absolute real thing. So when people say people don't die from cannabis, I think what they're saying is it doesn't have that same kind of physiological impact on the brain, such that it is literally going to the direct impact is going to kill you, and that's probably
Yeah.
true. I mean, that's probably true. It does not do that, and also the sudden cessation of cannabis doesn't do that either. Um, However, I think what you're getting at, Joe, is just because it doesn't have that kind of direct uh, um neurotoxic impact, it doesn't mean it's not dangerous, or you could do dangerous things, or you could have
Right.
bad ideas come to you, or
Sure.
or this whole psychological addiction. And the psychological addiction is real. The psychological addiction, it's nothing to poo-poo just because it's not physical. It's a psychological addiction can be extremely powerful and strong and a serious problem if you're
Yeah.
psychologically addicted to something. So, yeah, I mean, technically, I can see why people say that, but yeah, I'd say that let's
Well,
not take. Yeah,
let me ask Joe. Joe, do you think as a layperson that pot is something that is addictive, that you can get addicted to?
There's a big difference between the physically addictive and just mentally, as Roger was talking about. I don't know. I think definitely there's a lot of people who are mentally addicted to it because it maybe relaxes them, and when they're not on it, they're maybe more anxious potentially. But as far as like heroin or alcohol, I don't think that there's going to be a physical withdrawal necessarily from weed. But I don't know. What about if you ingest it? Is that something different?
So I did look at this. I did look at this before, and there is about 30% of people who use marijuana chronically have some sort of marijuana use disorder, which can really vary. That just means it can be anything from some dependence to what most, I think, psychiatrists or addiction medicine doctors would classify as an addiction. So there are some people who would say the first couple weeks after they stop, they notice some physical signs, even though it doesn't follow like the same physiological pathways, neurochemical pathways that, like Roger mentioned, with some of the other medications. So it certainly seems like there is some addictive, properties to it, or maybe it's just a psychological thing, like you mentioned. But um, getting to your question, I think about like pot's danger. I always find it kind of interesting that we assume because it's natural that there's not a danger to it. It's like
True.
nature developed these things, like evolution developed these things as a way to defend the plant. The plant developed this like ability to do this so people wouldn't eat it. And so if people were to eat this plant, they'd get all messed up and then they would get picked off. And then that would be like a defense mechanism that the plant had. So it's not like it's totally harmless. And I'm not like poo-pooing pot. I have nothing against it. But I mean, for some people, we can talk about how some people have a bad reaction to it. That could be a whole different episode.
Yeah.
Something
Yeah.
called cannabis hyperemesis syndrome. Or we could talk about
Oh,
that for a long time, and we should. But I got nothing against pot. But I mean, to make it seem like there's no downside to it or no harm to it, I never really thought that was great.
yeah. I don't think anyone's saying that, but my main question is just, could you physically overdose from it, or have a allergic reaction that could kill you? It sounds like no. It's more of a other intangible or mental factors that it could lead to bad things. But you can't like overdose from smoking too much weed. Is what I'm asking, I guess.
Probably not. I don't think so. But
Yeah.
I think someone could have an allergy. I guess. I mean, you can have allergy
Yeah.
to anything, so it's possible. Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff.
What, Roger? What about you want to talk about that video?
Oh yeah.
oh yeah. All right, let's move on to our second topic. So, you guys have probably seen this from a few months ago. This is the infamous dancing surgeon. Although, actually, I think she's actually a dermatologist, so maybe surgeon. No,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Anyways, whatever.
So, yeah, maybe not a surgeon per se.
Our general surgery colleagues might have a question about that.
Right.
But in any case, skin was cut, so there was some anesthesia involved. So so tell you what. So why don't let's watch the video for a minute, and we'll come back, and then we'll debrief and share some thoughts on that. All right. Okay. So let's go to the video.
Good
So
job,
first,
Roger. By the way.
Oh, good.
Now we're just
So at this point, why don't we just?
Rob,
I think
you guys have watched it, right?
I have, but
let's watch it again.
Let's
Let's
watch
just watch
it
a
again.
little bit of it.
Okay.
Just settle down. It's like 2 minutes of your life.
Okay.
I think the reaction will be better. I think if we've just watched it.
Yeah.
Okay. Good point.
All right, I'm just going to use your link because you did a good job of linking it.
I swear, I'm gonna get the color scheme going next time in the background.
This is good. I think we're getting the hang of this. I think this is a really good thing.
Yeah, the more we do it, the better we'll be at it.
Yeah.
All right. I'm just going to watch this thing on my phone.
Okay, I'll watch it too at the same time. Joe, talk amongst yourselves, or.
Yep. I'll take a breather.
Joe, you did see it?
Yeah.
I like watching Raj's face while he watches the video.
Reaction video. Oh my god.
Damn it. God damn it, this is taking so long on my phone. So annoying.
This Atlanta area dermatologist sings and dances for the camera. All day long. HLN has obtained video of multiple instances of questionable conduct by Dr. Wendell Boutte in the operating room. More than 20 videos like this one were posted to the doctor's public YouTube channel for promotional purposes.
Why?
Why? Patients have taken notice. HLN has found 5 malpractice lawsuits pending against Boutte. She's reached 4 settlements. HLN has not found judgment against her, but female patients with lawsuits claim they've suffered infections, disfigurement, even brain damage following procedures at Boutte's hand. Boutte's office and her attorneys did not respond to HLN's request for comment. HLN has learned the Georgia Composite Medical Board has had information regarding Boutte's allegedly unsafe practices since at least March 2016. In an interview with CNN affiliate WSV, the chairman refused to comment directly on Boutte, but said the board does not want to rush to judgment, so Boutte continues to practice. Quite frankly, that's appalling.
All right, I'm good whenever you guys are.
You should watch the second half of that video if you haven't seen it. Watch the last minute and a half.
Premier Aesthetic Center for Botox and other minor cosmetic treatments.
Pardon me.
By the way, there's some shenanigans going on with your fingernails there.
Oh yeah, I had them painted black.
What do you think?
Sorry.
Had some splinter hemorrhages or something?
Oh wow.
She was essentially dead. Her pupils were fixed and dilated. Cornelia survived, but suffered permanent brain damage. A 26-year-old son is now a 24-hour caretaker.
I have to basically help her in the bathroom. I have to brush her teeth. I have to prepare her meals, prepare her medication, her clothes, everything that like we're so used to doing for ourselves. I have to do that for her.
Cornelius's case was settled for an undisclosed amount. Former patients tell HLN they bought Boutet's claim that she's Atlanta's leading cosmetic surgeon and her credentials: medical school at UCLA, residency at Emory, a board-certified dermatologist. But lawsuits claim she's unqualified to do many of the procedures she advertises, even though law in Georgia allows it.
If you have a medical license, then there's no restriction on what you can do. We have seen cases where emergency room physicians have gotten into the cosmetic surgery business, OBGYNs who are performing breast augmentations, breast reductions, tummy tucks.
Which says the focus is on Boutet now, but she's not unique.
Oh God. Okay, I'm good.
All right, you good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, you guys ready? Come back in 3, 2, 1. All right, so that was a thing. Oh my goodness. All right, a few things in my mind to talk about, but actually, Joe, I
Oh,
want to start with
boy.
you. So, Joe, I mean, as just a person, like, what do you think about when you see stuff like this?
Well, it's funny because when I first saw the headline of it before watching the whole video, I was like, why are people going after this person? You know, I mean, she's just lightening up the environment in the operating room, and sometimes that can be a great thing. By the time I kind of watched the end of it, it was over the top. I thought it was funny. I don't take it that seriously. I know that there were some lawsuits to that were came up. I don't know if it was related to the dancing or if it was just completely separate. But I have one specific question that came up. Apparently, when there was one patient who had a poor outcome, and they actually had to call 911, and I'm thinking to myself, they're in an operating room with surgeons. Why would they call 911?
Good question,
Yes.
Joe. Good question.
Yeah. And
Very
then I was
astute.
like, maybe there's a big can of worms there. But that was
No,
strange.
no,
Why
no.
would a doctor call 911 in an operating room during a surgery?
This is an excellent question. Here, you go first, Kaveh.
Well, so I don't know the full details of it, but probably what happened was this was not done in an inpatient setting. It wasn't done in a hospital proper. It was probably done in a clinic, so not attached to the rest of the hospital. Now, say if you're having a procedure done in an office that's attached to a hospital or in a hospital, like where most cases with anesthesia are probably done. If there's a code or there's a medical emergency, then everyone in the hospital who's able and willing will come to that. But if you're in an outpatient setting in a clinic, then that's not really an option for you. Your only option are the people that are there in the office with you. And so she probably had an anesthesiologist, I think, for that case where there was a bad outcome. But the anesthesiologist felt like they needed more help and they couldn't manage it on their own, or they felt that the patient had been stabilized enough to where they needed to transport them to a hospital for further care. That's my guess as to what happened.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
What do you think, Raja?
Yeah, I think there's it's almost kind of a few different layers to this. So I think the attention grabbing part is the whole playing music while doing surgery thing, and surgeons often play music during surgery. That's not uncommon. Usually, it's not. I would say it's perhaps done in a more professional way.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Wait. Let me.
It was rehearsed. It was like totally rehearsed.
May I? I'm gonna say something real quick, okay? Because I do procedures most days, and pretty much every day I'm doing procedures, which isn't quite surgery, but it's a similar vibe. And I have
Yeah.
worked in the ORs, and I will tell you, I will fight to the death for the ability to play music during procedures. I think that's
Totally.
very important. I think it's good. Actually, it's been proven. I think it's easy to prove that people do better work and the jobs are better when the physician is listening to music, at least if that's what they're into. If they like music and if it's music they like, I think it's pretty clear they do better.
It gets them relaxed and focused at the same
Yeah,
time, and you need to be
exactly.
I mean, you're focusing on something that you need to be able to focus for
Right.
like 6, 7, 8, 9 hours. I mean, if that's if that helps you.
Yeah, exactly. So I am all for music, but oh my God, what a douche! Oh my, what was that? What was the point of that? I don't get it. Like, what was she trying to? Why was she trying to make a name for that sort of dancing? Like, that doesn't. Like, what was? What? It doesn't even make sense to me. Like, is that supposed to be funny? Were people looking at those videos and being like, "Oh, this is really what if I want that person cutting into me? That looks fun." Like, just at the end of the day, like, you shouldn't be doing things that like you wouldn't want done to you. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I'll be doing a procedure and I will sing to songs, but my patients are asleep. Those poor bastards don't have to hear me. And like, and that's just like a little bit of singing to like help me relax and helps me do my procedures, etc. But I don't think I would be upset if someone was operating on me and was like humming to themselves like I do, or listening to music. That's like pretty normal stuff. But to like get away from the procedure, to be distracted from the procedure, to not be focused on that procedure, I think that I don't think she would want that done to her. Why would she do that to other people? Actually, this, I have to say, normally I stick up for doctors, but this one really annoys me.
Wow.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Although I have to point out, if you really watch that video carefully, one of the patients whose backside is on the table is kind of bouncing with the music too.
No.
Oh yeah, you gotta watch it.
I
Yes,
did see that. I did.
maybe.
But
Well, whatever. Anyways,
but
so maybe that
I
was the
didn't know if
culture
that
that
person
vibe
was
came up.
actually maybe but I just can't imagine. What really surprises me is that like people may have seen these videos and still went to her. Maybe they just never saw these videos.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think you said the right thing, which is for me the line is it or is it not helping you do your main job at that moment, which is to focus on the procedure. So judging from the videos, I agree. It's not clear that's actually helping her focus on the procedure. In fact, she's kind of stepping away from the procedure in order to start doing her little dancing and whatever.
Yeah.
Does that
Well,
make you feel
that's the
safer or not?
Yeah, that's the whole reason she got in trouble, because she posted it on YouTube to market herself, and
Mm-hmm.
that's when I found that out. I was like, okay, man, this is overboard. I thought it was kind of funny, honestly, for most of it, but that, yeah, when you find out the motivation, and yeah, like to Kaveh's point, where you're leaving the patient's bed and swinging around your arm with a scalpel, it increases the risks, and it's
Yeah,
the golden
I don't
rule
like
was
it.
not in play.
I don't like it because this is the kind of shenanigans that ruins like like
Yes.
normal like doctors, like reps, and like
Yes.
it
Yes.
makes our fun shenanigans look bad. It's like people
Yes.
like this that ruin it for everybody.
Yep.
Like it's people like this that'll make it so there's like a rule that you can't listen to music in like
Yeah,
the while you're doing surgeries or procedures, you know?
Yep.
It
great
anyways.
point.
So I would say that I think the can of worms, though, we probably should talk about is what Joe was asking. So that's the headline grabbing part, but I think the larger issue is this. So I have found it interesting since I graduated from my training programs and now I'm in a regular community. I'm still kind of in academics, but in real life. So where I live, there was that about $100 bills? What was that?
That's right. That's right. Go on.
Yeah, so that's the problem, which is you see all this kind of proliferation of these freestanding cosmetic centers, and I think the dichotomy here, I think the schism is between most doctors are trained in a way that we focus on kind of pathophysiological problems, underlying basis of disease, how do we fix these things? But in real life, and I'm not saying it's good or bad, I'm just like, in our society, there is a huge amount of money and therefore demand from just the population in general for cosmetic stuff. And it's for cosmetic stuff. And I'm not saying good or bad. It's what it is. And everything from small procedures like Botox to larger procedures to liposuction. There's a million things out there. There's laser treatments. There's so many things that are out there, and it's almost a bit of the Wild West. And it's not very well regulated, and we're not very well trained for any of that because that's not. People that go to medical school say, first day medical school saying, so, Kaveh, at UC Davis, we're going to train you how to get smoother skin for your patients. Right? I mean, and I'm not saying it's good or bad, that's not how we're trained. And so what happens in real life is we come out of training programs and people need to make money or want to make money, or you come out with $200,000 in student loans.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you realize, wait a second, there's a huge demand out here in this community for these cosmetic procedures that run the gamut of complexity. And like that lawyer, I will say, that lawyer at first I was like, oh gosh, he's going to sensationalize this. But no, actually that lawyer made some good points, which is once you have an unrestricted license, there's very little legal limits from saying anybody who wants to open up a shop can open up a shop and advertise, I'm going to do A, B, C, D, and A. I'm going to give you the whole aesthetic center. And there's very little limits on it. And so you got people that, and there's various levels of trainings. A dermatologist gets one level of training, a general surgeon, a family practice doc, an ER doc, whatever. But none of them were really trained in all these things. And some of them were trained in none of them. And they just like, oh, but I can make money. So you see this proliferation of these aesthetic centers with varying levels of, I would say, provider expertise because it's not very well regulated. And so I'm just listening to that story, for example. When you say, oh, well, she wanted to do this thing on my tummy, like it sounds like maybe liposuction or a tummy tuck, on 8 hours on the table. I'm like, you're in an outpatient building that they showed doing an 8-hour surgery. That is probably a combination of a tummy tuck and liposuction, which, by the way, is not a small surgery. That's not a small surgery, and it is not risk-free. And like Joe was saying, well, how come they're like, this is the problem. You're not in a hospital. So if you call a code blue, there's no pharmacist running down. There's no respiratory therapist coming down. They're like, you're just in a clinic building somewhere, and whoever's in the room is going to try and save your life. And also, by the way, most of my dermatology friends were not trained to do liposuction. And that might vary by program, but I mean, that's a plastic surgery thing. But most of my dermatology friends were not trained to do that. But there's also probably no law against it either. So I feel like this combination of like, student loans, a training kind of philosophy that doesn't always match what the population's asking for, and then you throw a lot of money into the mix, including money. Again, people are willing to pay cash for things, right? You don't have to fight for insurance money. You don't have to. People are like, "Oh, can you make my face look better? Can you make my tummy look better?" There's so much money involved that it's leading to dicey situations. And I think that's my opinion. I think that's leading to dicey situations in a lot of communities. I see it in our community here, and I don't know what the answer is at the moment, but I think it does touch upon a real concerning thing.
Yeah, I think you touched on.
You nailed it.
I think we just need a little bit more regulation when it comes to patient safety. There's got to be people who are licensed. I was thinking about it. Our old guest Umang Mehta. I wonder what he would think about all this, because he seems like the opposite of this person. He went through all the training, all the school, the medical school, and he seemed very cordial and professional, kind of complete different type of person. And I'm wondering what he would think. But you got to regulate stuff, I think.
Great.
What do you guys think?
No, I think you're totally right. I think you nailed it too by bringing up Umang, our plastic surgery buddy, like who you can't imagine not only him acting this way, but two, he wouldn't sell himself in the same way this person sold herself. Like that's the thing about her. Like, I don't know if she's really great. She might be good. She seemed to have some good schools under her, like in her CV, but like this selling of herself as I am the best, most preeminent dermatologic surgeon or whatever she said, like how she sold herself. I find that really interesting, because that's not something I see doctors doing that much when I'm like, when I really respect those doctors. I don't really see them selling themselves in that way. I mean, you always have to sort of sell yourself to get people's confidence because you want to have faith in your doctor. But I can't imagine him, for example, doing that.
Yeah, gives them a bad name, kind of,
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll get his input on this. That's a good
Yeah,
idea. Anyways, that was good. Hey, that was a
All
that
right.
was a fun first webisode, guys.
yeah.
What do you think?
Awesome.
Or vodcast?
Let's do it
Vodcast
again.
episode. I'm open for whatever, but yeah, it was good. It was good. I'm super happy about that.
All right, little rough, but we'll get it down. We're getting it down as as this thing's going along, and I think we'll keep doing this. They'll get better and better.
What
Awesome.
do we
All
do
right.
now? Raja, do the play, or do we edit it, or what do you think?
So I was gonna close out. No, I'll just close this out, and then I'll hit stop broadcast or stop our. I think we can still hang out and talk about it for a minute, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. I think that was a great first webisode / vodcast, whatever we end up calling it. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Kaveh.
Hey,
Thank
thanks,
you.
guys. Thanks, Roger. Thanks, everyone.
All
Thanks for
right.
watching. Listen to our podcast.
Listen to our podcast, The House of Pod, on iTunes, and what else? Stitcher Radio.
Stitcher Radio, Google Play. If you haven't, rate and review us on iTunes. It really helps get listeners to come check us out. And we really appreciate it. So thank you so much.
And coming soon on the House of Pod video channel, we'll have some subscribe and like buttons for you guys too. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. And then you'll be like, right here, right here,
Right there.
right here. It'd be cool. All right. Bye, guys.
Awesome. Bye.
Yes.